he took Sanatana Goswami with him. This was the regular practice of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of sannyasis in general, taking bath at noontime before lunch. Some people take bath after lunch, usually it's before lunch. Text 73. Pada prakshalana kari vikshate vasila. Sanatane bhiksha deha nishrera kahila. Sanatane bhiksha deha nishrera kahila. After washing his feet, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat down for lunch. He asked Parmeshwar to supply Sanatana Goswami lunch also. Text 74. Mishra kahe sanatanera kichu kritya ache. Mishra kahe sanatanera kichu kritya ache. Tumi bhiksha prasad bhanga dipakache. Tumi The Parmeshwar said, Sanatan has some duty to perform, therefore he cannot accept lunch now. At the conclusion of the meal, I shall supply Sanatan with some remnants. This I think will be explained shortly. Sanatan Goswami naturally being very humble and understanding the exalted position of Sanatana Goswami, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave some excuse for not taking prasadam. And that's what is mentioned here on the plea of some duty to perform. Text 75. Viksha Kali Mahaprabhu Visama Kalila. Viksha Kali Mahaprabhu Visama Kalila. Mishra Prabhura Shesha Patra Sanatane Dila. Mishra Prabhura Shesha Patra Sanatane Dila. After eating, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took rest for a while. The Parmeshwar then gave Sanatana Goswami the remnants of food left by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There was a practice, especially during the time of Lord Chaitanya, in Jagannath Puri, which is where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spent most of his time after taking sannyas, after traveling and preaching for about 6 years. There was always competition amongst householders to invite Lord Chaitanya for lunch in their home. Actually, it is explained how every single day of the month was booked, probably overbooked, and there was heavy competition, especially amongst some of the more senior devotees who would arrange to have him more than once in their home as well. Many wonderful descriptions are there in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, how in those days they would be serving on kolapata, banana leaves. In the West, before before coming to India, I thought banana leaves were like the peels of bananas. How they're going to serve prasadam? because you don't see banana leaves in the West. I mean, bananas don't grow, you know. So the same thing like coconut. Coconut, we only see the coconut shell. We never really see the actual coconut. So they would serve on these banana leaves, and the details are given that the banana leaves would be like 7 feet long. I mean, huge. Banana leaves can go very tall. So it's not unusual to have like 6 feet or so long banana leaves. That's the most practical and eco-friendly way of serving food, because then you just dispose of it and it goes back to nature. And they would naturally serve. Uh, they would make so many different preparations that they would normally serve in clay pots. That's another very natural and wonderful way in which to cook. Actually, uh, they would cook the traditional side, the traditional manner, using cow dung, which is again unknown in the Western world. Well, no, maybe a little bit being introduced. Dry, what we call cow cakes. People from India, they know these things. And there are different ways of making the cow cake also. I mean, the general way, ladies in the villages, they do this every day. They take the cow dung, make a small ball, it's put on the wall, right? And somebody made a small documentary once showing how there's a whole wall, and one lady who does this every day, very systematically, one line after another, she would be throwing it and it would just fall at the right place. The whole wall within a short time would be covered. And it dries. Probably can't do that in the UK. But in India or such places where there's a lot of sun, and they arrange it in such a way, of course, they have rainy season in India, so they arrange beforehand. And Srila Prabhupada would explain that the cooking with cow dung, that is the topmost way so that the food comes out super tasty, super excellent. Of course, after offering it to Krishna. Yeah. Um, so when we read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we can find many wonderful descriptions that have to do with the more natural way of cooking, natural way of serving on these leaf plates, and also what we call etiquette. We have uh, devotees who give courses on what is called Vaishnav etiquette. Uh, there's a particular way, just like here, Sanatana Goswami finding an excuse not to be there, taking prasadam at the same time with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Generally, it's a little bit like that. So let's see. So that means that, yeah, because a lot of food was offered to the Lord, so a lot of that extra food was served afterwards to the Sanatana Goswami. Next verse, 76. Mishra Sanatane Dila Nutana Vasana
Mishra Sanatane Dila Nutana Vasana
Vastra Nahi Dila Tempo Koila Nivedana
Vasana Dila Teno Kaila Nivedana.
Translation. When Tapan Mishra offered Sanatana Goswami a new cloth, he did not accept it. Instead, he spoke as follows. I mean, most people would be glad to take a new cloth, new dhoti, new whatever. So This is the explanation here, text 77. Mare vastradive yadi tamara haryamana
Mora Adivedi Tomara Yamana
Nija paridhana eka deha puratana
Nija Paridhana Dekadya.
If you want to give me some cloth according to your desire, please give me an old cloth you have used. Tabe Mishra Puratana Eka Dhuti Diga.
Rabe Mitra Puratana Nikadutira.
Then hold the way Bahir Vasa Kopina Kodila. When Tatan Mishra gave Sanatan Goswami a used dhoti, Sanatan immediately tore it into pieces to make two sets of outer cloth and underwear. Text 79. Maharashtriya Vijay Prabhu Vilaila Sanatane
Maharashtriya Vijay Prabhu Vilaila Sanatane
Sevitra Tandre Koila Maha Dimantrane.
Sevitra Tandre Koila Maha Dimantrane.
When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced the Maharashtrian Brahmana to Sanatan, the Brahmana immediately invited Sanatan for full meals. This is the Vedic practice, very nice tradition, because especially in India, this will be explained briefly in a few verses. Saintly persons, it's probably only in India that this can happen, but one can spend, well, maybe nowadays it's becoming more difficult, but that was a custom even not so long ago. One can spend one's whole life practically visiting one holy place, another holy place. India is full of holy places. And they have, what do they call it? Special guest house. What's the name of that? Yeah, Dharmashala. Dharmashala is a place where they actually provide free, at no cost. One can stay in a Dharmashala and get free meal also. And there are many. Those are provided actually by, especially we call Marwadis. They are generally business people who understand the importance of the dharma, of practicing spiritual life, the importance of saintly persons, especially brahmanas, because their primary responsibility. That's nice arrangement in the Vedic culture. There's a particular class of people who are meant to specialize simply in cultivating spiritual transcendental knowledge and giving that freely to people. Knowledge is, I think possibly we were mentioning, three gifts of nature that are given by the Lord: cows, land, and knowledge. All three of them in the Vedic culture are meant to be gifted away also, not sold. Cows in the Vedic culture not sold. Land also is not sold. And knowledge, very different in our modern society today. If you want to get an education, you have to pay quite a bit of money, especially higher education. But in the Vedic culture, knowledge is given, but not just given to anybody and everybody. It is given to those who are qualified to receive that knowledge, because knowledge is considered as a weapon. It can be misused when in the wrong hands. It's like if you don't give a knife to a child. So Knowledge is therefore something very especially, well, not only spiritual knowledge, also knowledge about how to do things materially. So in the Vedic culture, the Brahmanas, their main business, actually, their main activity is to every day study Shastra. They're meant to study Shastra. They're meant to also make that knowledge available to the observing persons. So therefore, because they depend on others, they don't have uh, actual salary. So there are other members in the society, especially the Vaishyas, those who are into making money, who have financial resources. They are very happily supporting them by providing different facilities, etc., like that. So, see here. Um, Text 80. Sanatana kami yavat kashite rahiva tavat amar bhave diksha ye kariba. The Brahmana said, my dear Sanatan, as long as you remain at Kashi, please accept lunch at my place. Text 81. Sanatana kahe age madhukari karibo. Brahmanera ghare kene ekatra bhiksha lava. Translation and purport. Our first purport of the day. Sanatan replied, I shall practice the process of madhukari. Why should I accept full meals from the house of a Brahmana? Of course, Prabhupada gives a nice report on this. I was in Vrindavan many years ago, and I happened to meet a local, we call Brajavasi. Brajavasi, Vasi means those who reside in Braj. Braja is another name for Vrindavan, where Krishna performed his pastimes, considered by devotees as the most sacred place on the planet. And in front of our Krishna Balaram temple, which has become actually the second most favorite temple in Vrindavan, I happened to meet one local Brajavasi, and he was mentioning how this process of Madhukari means that Brahmanas, saintly persons like Sanatana Goswami, they prefer just every day going from one place to another and getting whatever people may be offering. Usually they collect like a few chapatis. It's not that they collect like 20 chapatis and start selling them, or they collect maybe whatever they digest in a day. They might take 2 or 3 or 4 chapatis, whatever it may be. And the local residents in Vrindavan, because they're very special. To take birth in Vrindavan is very special. Actually, Prabhupada mentions to take birth anywhere in India, just special birth, because the land of India, or Bharatvarsha, is referred to as Bharat Bhumi, Punya Bhumi, Bharatvarsha, Punya Bhumi, pious land, actually, for so many reasons. And so this one particular person was nicely explaining to me a little bit about, give me some little insight about this Madhukari system. So he explained how every day the Brajavasis, the residents of Vrindavan, they know that at some point somebody's going to either knock on the door or just come and stand in front of the house. And so every day, most of the residents, the ladies, they'll prepare some chapatis to give to them. But then he went on to explain how the first chapati that they cook, they don't offer to Krishna. They keep it aside for the cow. So then they'll cook a second chapati. Some of you from India will know this. They'll cook a second chapati, and that second chapati also doesn't go to Krishna. Krishna is very patient, he has to wait. Because that second chapati goes to Brahmana, who's going to come at the house for Madhukari. And then they cook a third chapati, which finally does go to Krishna, like that. The understanding is that they know, the residents of Vrindavan, Brajavasis, that Krishna becomes more pleased when his beloved cows and beloved brahmanas are served before him. Is the mentality that is there actually in Vrindavan. So Sanatana Goswami, who is a very exalted, saintly person, he's one of what we call the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, who were especially requested by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to excavate, we can say, or to extract from the Vedic literatures all topics in relation to the science of bhakti, or devotional service. So we see here how Sanatana Goswami preferred not depending, when you eat in somebody's house all the time, you kind of like take it for granted. So he preferred this process of Madhukari. The Prabhupada explains here in the purport, gives a bit more information. So purport, the word Madhukari comes from the word Madhukara, which refers to bees collecting honey from flower to flower. Yeah, Madhu, honey. A Madhukari is a saintly person or a mendicant who does not accept a full meal at one house, but begs from door to door, taking a little food from each householder's place. In this way, he does not overeat or give householders unnecessary trouble. A person in a renounced order may beg, but not cook. His begging should not be a burden for the householders. In the Vedic culture, it is the responsibility of householders, just like householders, naturally married people, they have children, and the primary responsibility of householders is naturally to look after their children. In the Vedic culture, those who are either brahmacharis, means who are celibate, who don't enter into householder life, as well as sannyasis, are considered as children in the Vedic culture and are taken care of by householders. The Madhukari process is strictly to be followed by a Babaji, that is, one who has attained the Paramahamsa stage. So Babaji, Vrindavan is the place of Babajis. And Babaji is a very elevated level, referred to here as Paramahamsa. Paramam means high, and Hamsa means swan. So those who are practicing spiritual life, they can attain this level of, we call Paramahamsa, very elevated stage, whereby although living in the material world, they are not entangled, they don't become entangled in the material world, but keep focus on their primary purpose of life, which is to advance in Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada continues here in the purport, this practice is still current in Vrindavan, and there are many places where alms are offered. Unfortunately, there are many beggars who have come to Vrindavan to accept alms, but not follow the principles of Sanatana Goswami. People try to imitate him and lead an idle life of practicing Madhukari. It is almost impossible to strictly follow Sanatana Goswami or Rupa Goswami. It is better to accept the food offered to Krishna in a temple than to try to imitate Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami. And then Prabhupada quotes one verse. Yuktahara viharasya Yukta chistasya karmasu Yukta swapna pabodhasya Yogo bhavati dukkha. Translation: he who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. This is a verse from the Bhagavad Gita, 6th chapter, text 17. The ideal sannyasi strictly follows the ways practiced by the Goswamis. So actually, it's not sannyas order is one of the four called ashramas in the Vedic culture. There are 8 natural divisions. For social divisions called Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and for ashramas, which are like spiritual divisions. The sannyas order is the fourth, which means actually renounce life. But in the Bhagavad Gita, it's nice to explain that it's not only sannyasis who are meant to be sannyasis. Means Krishna speaks about sannyas yoga, because sannyas actually means to become detached. Our problem in the material world is because we identify with our body, we identify with matter, with the material world, and we become attached, we develop attachment. It's natural to be attached, but our natural attachment is meant to be with Krishna. It's natural to have feelings, but our more natural feelings are meant to be in relation to Krishna. Then we don't become entangled. So it means that actually, although sannyasis are there in many culture, all of us are meant to cultivate this mentality of detachment. Detachment from matter, but attachment to Krishna. And the more we develop that attachment for Krishna, which develops in a natural attraction to Krishna and essentially the practice of devotional service, and then then we become actually qualified to one day go back to Krishna. That is the whole. Actually, this text that we're reading, this book that we are referring as Chaitanya Charitamrita, uh, through this and so many other examples, is showing us, how those who are very advanced in this cultivation of knowledge, they will act in a particular way, and they will always keep in mind what is their primary goal and purpose of life. So the Goswami of Vrindavan, sometimes Goswami being one of them, is therefore showing us by personal example in this way. Text 82. Sanataner Vairagye Prabodha Ananda Apara Bhota Kambala Pani Prabhu Chahe Bare Bara Bhota Kambala Pani Prabhu Chahe Bare Bara. This is my heart again and again, repeatedly. Translation: Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt unlimited happiness to observe Sanatana Goswami's strict following of the principles of sannyas. However, he repeatedly glanced at the woolen blanket Sanatana Goswami was wearing. Sanatan, 83. Sanatana Janila E Prabhu E Nabhaya. Sanatana Janila E Prabhu Nabhaya. Bhota Tyaga Karibare Chintila Upaya. Bhota Tyaga Karibare Chintila Upaya. Because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was repeatedly glancing at his valuable woolen blanket, Sanatana Goswami could understand that the Lord did not approve of it. He then began to consider a way to give it up. Text 84. Eka chinti gila gangaya madhyana karite. Eka chinti gila gangaya madhyana karite. Eka godiya kantha dhana vyatse Chukaite. Eka godiya kantha dhana vyatse chukaite. Translation: Thinking in this way, Sanatan went to the bank of the Ganges to bathe. While there, he saw that a mendicant from Bengal had washed his quilt and spread it out to dry. Text 35. Tare kahe bole bhai kora upakara. Tare kahe bole bhai upakara. E bhutalana e kanta e hamori. E bhutalana e kanta e hamori. Translation: Sanatana Goswami then told the Bengali mendicants, "My dear brother, please do me a favor. Trade me your quilt for this woolen blanket." Text 86. Se kahe rahasya para pramalika hana. Se kahe rahasya para pramalika hana. Bahu mulya hota deva kena antalana. Bahu mulya hota deva kena antalana. The mendicant replied, "Sir, you are a respectable gentleman. Why are you joking with me? Why would you trade your valuable blanket for my torn quilt?" Most of us could not do that. Text 87. Then ho kahe rahasya nahi kahi satya vani.
Teno kahe rahasya nahe kahi satya vani.
Bhotalana tumi deha muri kantha kani. Translation. Sanatan said, I am not joking. I am speaking the truth. Kindly take this blanket in exchange for your torn quilt. 88. Etabali kanta vaila bhota tandriya. Gosalira thani aila kanta galiya. Saying this, Sanatana Goswami exchanged the blanket for the quilt. He then returned to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with the quilt on his shoulder. 89. Prabhu kahe tumhara bhutta kambala kothagela.
Prabhu kahe tumhara bhutta kambala kothagela.
Prabhu pade sabha kotha kosane kahila. When Sanatana Goswami returned, the Lord asked, where is your woolen blanket? Sanatana Goswami then narrated the whole story to the Lord. Prabhu kahe iha ami kariyatsi vichara.
Prabhu kahe iha ami kariyatsi vichara.
Vishaya roga kandayana Krishna ye tumhara. Sekene nakile tumhara shesha vishaya bhoga. Roga khanti sad vaidya narake shesha roga. Translation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then said, I have already deliberately considered this matter. Since Lord Krishna is very merciful, he has nullified your attachment for material things. Why should Krishna allow you to maintain a last bit of material attachment? After vanquishing a disease, a good physician does not allow any of the disease to remain. Kina mudara bhota kaya madhukari grasa. Dharma hani hariya loka kali upahasa. Translation. It is contradictory to practice madhukari and at the same time wear a valuable blanket. One loses his spiritual strength by doing this, and one will also become an object of jokes. Just one or two more here. Gosani kahe kandila Vishaya bhoga. Chandra isaya gela mara shesha vishaya roga. Sanatana Goswami replied, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has saved me from the sinful life of material existence by his desire my last piece of material attraction is now gone. Jai Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki.
Yeah.
Any comments, possibly, or questions on what we have heard? Yeah.
You're saying that everyone has to become detached.
Yes.
So is it not really possible to become detached until you're attached to Krishna, the state of the Sakti?
Good question. Yes, it is practically impossible to become detached from material things unless we learn to gradually become attached, which requires some kind of attraction. We become attached to generally what we are attracted to. And the material world actually is full of attractions. And we see them as attractions, and they remain as attractions as long as we don't come to know about the all-attractive Supreme Personality of Godhead. So yes, that is a process, which is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita. Unless we develop that higher taste. Taste we all have, because taste, attraction, or desire is within all of us. We cannot, just like Prabhupada explained, we cannot do away with desire. We just have to transform that desire from material desire to spiritual desire, from material attraction to spiritual attraction. And the attraction, the foremost attraction that can completely, as we are seeing here, that can completely nullify, we can say, our material attraction is in relation to Krishna. I was just hearing yesterday or this morning how there are three sides Prabhupada explains. It's in the Nectar of Devotion, which is our basic book explaining in detail the science of bhakti. And the brother of Sanatana Goswami, whose name is Rupa Goswami, who wrote the Nectar of Devotion, explains how there's three kinds of happiness: material happiness, spiritual happiness, and when we think, well, what else is there? Then there's a third one, it's called devotional happiness. Spiritual happiness and devotional happiness are different, although both of them are on the transcendental platform. Spiritual happiness is when we begin the process of understanding that we are different from this body. Aham Brahmasmi. One can derive what we call transcendental or spiritual happiness. But that happiness, compared to what is called devotional happiness, is very insignificant. Yeah? Because devotional happiness introduces us, just like in the material world, people are constantly falling in love. Probably maybe falling out of love more than falling in love. Material relationships in this world are temporary. Even they may last, there are couples who stay together and for whole life, but at one point, one of them, and eventually both of them, leave. That relationship is broken. Whereas the this propensity of love that we all have, which is the most important aspect, ingredient or quality, when we develop that relationship of love, which develops into attachment, remains for eternity. And that is why this science of bhakti, which brings us to that platform, is so unique. And until and unless we develop that particular relationship on the devotional level, then we will be, yes, in different ways, still attracted and remain attached to So that either individuals or things or whatever like that. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj. In the purport, it mentioned this verse has to be regulated in eating and sleeping and recreation and work.
It mentions that one should be
Regulated
regulated.
from quotes from the Bhagavad Gita.
Okay.
I just wondered if you could give some practical advice on how to actually become regulated.
Advice on how to become regulated. Actually, in the next devotion, this whole aspect of regulated life is described as sadhana bhakti, isn't it? Yeah. So being regulated means the many examples. Being regulated means to be disciplined, to, for example, to rise at a particular time every day, to eat also generally at a particular time. So to be regulated means to follow basic rules and regulations that are helping us both materially as well as spiritually to become actually situated in the mode of goodness. So initially, when one comes in contact with Krishna consciousness, he learns about the need or the importance to be regulated. Simple example in the material world: if somebody has a job and he doesn't come to office on time, then the boss won't be very happy with him, and he might lose his job. So even in ordinary life, people are taught to be regulated. So in the same way, spiritually, in the initial phase, there are specific regulations, rules that, if followed, will be more conducive for our advancement in spiritual life. So we are meant to be regulated in our eating, in our sleeping, in our in sex life, within household life. Of course, in the Vedic culture, there is recommendation for what is called brahmacharya for both boys and girls. In the Vedic culture, one is highly recommended to practice what is called abstinence or celibacy. We also know in our Vaishnava way of life, there are different samskaras that's also helping us to be regulated. For example, the first of the 10 samskaras, the main 10 samskaras, is called the Garbhadhana samskara, which is in the Western countries is unthinkable, unimaginable. Garbhadhana samskara means that before husband and wife conceive, they will choose a particular day, a particular time, and they will also get permission from their spiritual masters to actually conceive a child. And there's a particular guidelines to follow. So it means in Vedic culture, all that we do with a particular purpose, and there are specific guidelines recommended. And these are fall in the category of being regulated. And one who practices this, after some time, it will become more natural or more spontaneous. So therefore, there are 3 levels that are described in the Nectar Devotion, as we know, those who have read this particular book. 3 levels of bhakti. The first one being very much connected with rules and regulations and practice, called sadhana. Sadhana means, rules and regulations. And then from sadhana bhakti, one in due course of time rises to what is called bhava bhakti. Bhava bhakti, where one is more spontaneously practicing and beginning to experience transcendental feelings or transcendental emotions. And as one continues to practice this bhava bhakti, one eventually comes to the ideal level or the goal of life for all of us, which is prema bhakti, where we develop our pure love for Krishna. So personalities like Sanatana Goswami, they were on that level, and these are very detailed examples of how, symptoms when one is on that level, then he's detached basically, automatically detached from uh, so many different elements that otherwise would be there. I don't know if you had anything else in mind, but okay. Any other last? Yes.
Or you mentioned that India is called Punya Bhumi. So it's the land of piety. So if simple activity is being performed in Punya Bhumi, is the reaction greater than being performed in other languages?
Yes. Question being that when we perform simple activities in Punya Bhumi, in sacred land, sacred place, whether there will be greater reaction. Yes. Therefore, it is recommended that when we visit the place like Vrindavan, we should only stay 3 days. We should stay a short period of time, and we should be cautious. The reactions to sinful activities, there are very culture. Prabhupada very nicely explains how there are specific activities which fall in the category of sinful activity because they keep us materially attached. And but the opposite is also there. If one performs pious activities, devotional activities in such holy places, then one gets double, triple, or 1,000 times the benefit also. So it's like Prabhupada would explain that the spiritual life, devotional life, is like a razor's edge. You have to be careful, It can cut very nicely, but also if we're not attentive, we can draw blood, right? Yeah. Jai Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki Jai, Sanatana Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
His Holiness Bhakti Raghav Swami Maharaj ki
Jai.